Hello, Year 6. So hopefully you enjoyed yesterday's literacy lesson on using dashes to up-level the sentences about refugees and particularly about the emotions of refugees. And hopefully you came away with that lesson with a better understanding of who refugees are, the sort of hardships which they face, and also how to use dashes correctly. So I've got an example here, quick do now. So I've got 3 sentences here. What I want you to do is try and think now, maybe pause the video as well and think, where would dashes best go in those 3 sentences? So I'm going to suggest pausing it now and coming back together, say in 30 seconds, and explain where the dashes go. So hopefully you had an opportunity to add the dashes in there. I'll go through the 3 sentences now. So in the first example, lots of wild animals, dash, such as black rhinos, dash, are endangered. And here you can see the dashes are used in 2 places, which is perfectly fine. The second example, the same situation. So my best friend, Dash, who is really kind, Dash is a fantastic dancer, and you'll see here that the dash is used to add the extra information, who is really kind. And similarly for the third example, I'm going on holiday, dash, to my favourite place, dash, next week. And there are 3 different examples of dashes being used to add in extra information. So I'm not going to reread the model text today, but you have it on the screen here. So now might be a nice opportunity to pause this video and just read it through, just to recap on the diary entry, the model text. And remember, it's written by Amelia from Salt to the Sea, who was a refugee during World War II. So hopefully you have a nice opportunity now to pause this and read through the model text and focus on the features which are included in this diary entry. So today we'll be learning about how to use a new punctuation, which we haven't actually covered this year, but you should have covered in previous years or maybe familiar with from your own reading, called colons. Now, colons are used for 2 main reasons, and I'm going to go through these examples now. So they can be used, first of all, to introduce lists of items or things. So you've got 2 examples of colons being used in this situation here. So the first example, he was going to buy 3 things, colon, chairs, tables and utensils. So it's used to list items here. And the second example here, John wrote, colon, I wish you a happy new year, and remembering to include the inverted commas here as well. So you've got 2 different examples here of colons being used before a list of items. And you'll notice, screenshot at the bottom here, from the model text, you've got the colon as well, being listed. I've not eaten a proper meal in days, except from, and you've got the list here, the berries, the forest, ice cold water from the stream, and some potatoes from a field. So you've got an example from the model text as well of a colon being used in this situation too. The second situation, colons can be used to connect independent clauses which make sense on their own. So we've discussed how clauses are parts of sentences before. Independent clauses make sense on their own, whereas subordinate clauses add extra information in. And you can use a colon, as it says here, to connect 2 sentences when the second sentence summarizes, sharpens, or explains the first. But the important thing to remember is when you use a colon in this situation, both parts of the sentence should be complete and their content should be related as well. So colons here can be used in the middle of a sentence. You've got an example here. They will not make it, colon, the storm is too strong. So in this example here, they will not make it is complete on its own, but is related to the second bit of the sentence, colon, the storm is too strong. And you've got an example here at the bottom of a colon used in the model text. And you might want to pause the video now, just read it through and just go over this slide again, thinking about how colons are used in this situation. I'll show you an example here of how you might up-level sentences using colons. So this first sentence here, Callum spotted lots of different trees on his forest walk, oak, elm, birch, pine and horse chestnut. Obviously we're in year 6, so we want to up-level this sentence. So I'm going to show you here where you should include the colon. So Callum spotted lots of different trees on his forest walk. Okay, so I can see the colon here is going to be used before a list, because the list here is of oak, elm, birch, pine and horse chestnut. So to up-level the sentence, you should put a colon between walk and oak before the list here. The second example here, this is taken from a SATs paper. Tick 1 box to show the correct place for a colon in the sentence below. I decided it was time to leave. I needed to avoid the evening traffic. So in this situation, there is no list as such. What it is going to be the second example of a colon from the previous slide. So going back to this one, let's just recap on that really quickly. So it's been used to connect independent clauses, which make sense on their own. So in this example here, I decided it was time to leave. Okay, that's one clause. It makes sense in its own. So it should be colon here after leave. I needed to avoid the evening traffic. And you'll notice here, so the colon links the two independent clauses between leave and die, but they can make sense on their own, but they're also related to each other because the reason this person decided to leave on time was to avoid the evening traffic. So they're obviously related to each other. So you might want to pause that, just consolidate your learning, think about why colons are used and where they're used in those two sentences. So quick talk task now. Obviously in the classroom, you'd have an opportunity to discuss this with your friends, but maybe this is now a nice opportunity again to pause the video. I'll model the first one and show what you want to do. So these are sentences which do not have colons in, but I want you to try and up level them. So when you go to the shop for me later, I would like the following: milk, cheese and butter. Okay. In this situation here, the colon is being used, okay, before the list because of the list of shopping items. So I think I'm going to put the colon between following and milk here. I'm going to give you, say, a minute now to pause the video and try and add the colons in and up level the sentences for the other four examples here, and moving on to the challenge if you can to spot the mistake. So hopefully you're able to pause the video there. Just going over quickly now, hopefully in the second example, you're able to spot Amsterdam is filled with great museums, colon, just walk around and you'll find one. Again, a colon being used to separate the independent clauses which are related to each other but make sense on their own. And the third example, she earned 4 new brownie badges in the summer holidays, colon, because it's a list: first aid, home safety, fire safety and environment. The fourth one, she could only think of one word, colon, wow, against a list of something she was about to say. Fantastic. So hopefully you had a really good understanding now of how colons can be used to up level sentences. So what we're going to be doing today for our independent task, we're going to be thinking about what a refugee might wear and look like. And I've got 2 images on the board, or 3 images, sorry, on the board here, of refugees in the world today and refugees in the world during World War II, which is obviously when Salt to the Sea is set. So I want you to just look at these images and think about the sort of clothes they're wearing, both in World War II and today. So you may want to pause the video here and have a little think about that. Now you can see refugees in the world today here at the top. On the top right hand image, you can see that some are wearing life jackets. Some on the left are wearing thermal blankets by the look of it, their own blankets, which suggests perhaps they're in cold conditions. The reason the refugees on the right hand side are wearing life jackets is because sometimes they have to cross dangerous conditions in boats, and obviously for safety they're given life jackets. So there's some things which a refugee might wear today: life jackets and thermal blankets. On the bottom left hand corner you can see the image of the refugees during World War II. Now we knew obviously World War II went on over winter months as well as summer. So in the wintertime you can see here that these refugees are wearing really thick coats in order to try and stay alive, especially if they don't have accommodation inside. It looks like they've got a blanket there, here, thick winter coats, they're wearing hats, they're wearing scarves, all of this to keep warm. And these may not be in new condition, these coats. They may be from their hometown, they may be taken from strangers, they may be stolen. And it's obviously just to stay alive in the winter months, really. And you might focus on maybe some of the clothes are quite dirty because they haven't had an opportunity to wash these clothes for a while either. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of what a refugee might wear or look like. I've got a bit more information here about what a refugee might wear or look like. I'll put this on Seesaw as well, so you have this information for when you do your independent task. Because see, it says here, refugees often live in tents while they're in camps, and they're in camps whilst they cross from their homeland to their decided destination. So they'll be staying camps. So for example, there are camps in Calais today where refugees stay until they get to a country. And unfortunately, these offer little protection from cold and are also very flammable. And if they're very cold, obviously, this suggests more that they're going to need blankets, they're going to need layers, they're going to need thermal blankets, maybe coats as well. Refugees today are given life jackets and thermal blankets. Life jackets protect them whilst crossing in boats, whilst thermal blankets help them in cold conditions. During the Second World War, refugees would find whatever clothes they could to keep them warm during the harsh winter months. This may include the old coats from dead bodies or ragged coats from their previous life at home. And you might want to pause the video now and make some notes about clothes which refugee might wear or what they'd look like. And also what they'd look like. You might want to know, might want to mention here how they may not have eaten their proper meal for a while. They might be very thin. They might look quite dirty, they might look fatigued, they might look exhausted. All of these things you might want to jot down now as ideas for your independent task. Because for your independent task, what I want you to do is write up a page of what a refugee might wear and look like, but remembering to include colons as well. So remembering we include colons to link independent clause in a sentence or before a list. So I'm going to model to you now ways in which you might write sentences using colons. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of ways. And like I said, I'll put some facts as well in Seesaw to help you include write sentences as well. So first example here, refugees today are given life jackets and thermal blankets. I know that colons are used before a list, so I can turn this into a sentence with colon by saying refugees today are given colon jackets and thermal blankets. Example on the left here, life jackets protect them whilst crossing in boats, while thermal blankets help them in cold conditions. Okay, so in this sentence here, if you remove the conjunction while, you've got 2 independent clauses which make sense on their own. Life jackets protect them whilst crossing in boats, and you've got thermal blankets help them in cold conditions. So after the colon here, life jackets were used to protect refugees whilst crossing in boats, colon, thermal blankets help them in cold conditions. Okay, so that's an example of a colon being used to join together 2 independent clauses in the sentence. And the third example, during the war, refugees wore whatever clothes that they were found or given. Oh, and then you can make that include a colon by saying maybe comma, such as colon, stolen coats, donated blankets, and worn hats. So I've modelled here 3 sentences with colons in. Remember, what I want you to do for your independent task is write sentences describing what refugees may wear and also what they'd look like as well, using colons to join independent clauses and before a list. Hopefully in this video, this lesson, you've had an opportunity to write down ideas of how a refugee would look. So for example, you might want to focus on how they're tired, they might have dirt on their face, the sort of clothes they've had, such as anything old, any coats from home, any warm materials. You hopefully have noted how they might have to steal some of these clothes. You might want to maybe compare refugees today but to before. So how today they'll have life jackets, maybe thermal blankets, these sorts of things. And hopefully that will provide you with enough information to write about a page on what refugees may wear, remembering to use colons as well in your writing as well. I can't wait to see your work on Seesaw, and please do make sure you use the facts which I upload on Seesaw as well about the clothes which refugees might wear in order to help you. Good luck.